Good morning, I'm Karl Fitzpatrick and it's business time here on Southeast Radio. Welcome to this week's edition of Business Matters. You can follow me on Twitter at Karl Fitzpatrick or visit karlfitzpatrick.ie. Okay, let's get straight down to business. On this week's agenda, I'll be speaking to Joe Walsh from Advanced Cleaners about his 37 years in business, and we'll get to hear his thoughts on the current business environment. And Aileen Rogers from Ready Girls speaks about the origins of her emergency product and her plans following her successful pitch on Dragon's Den. If there's any particular topic you would like to hear covered on the show, feel free to email the details to businessmatters@southeastradio.ie. Joining me now in studio is Joe Walsh from Advanced Cleaners. Joe, you might start by telling me a little bit about your own career, please.
Well, I'm a Wexford man, born and bred, and generations back, as far as we've ever looked, have all been Wexford and Wexford Town. So I'm a yellow belly through and through, I suppose. Yeah, my working career started off with Wexford Creamery, actually, who are still to this day a client of mine. I began work there as a laboratory technician. It didn't really agree with me because it interfered too often with the first love of my life, which was football at the time. I would be frequently required to work Sundays, and that interfered with the football. So I made the decision to follow football as opposed to Wexford Creamery. And as a result, I went to work then on building sites for a number of years. There was some construction going on in Wexford, a few factories built, and I worked on those. 1976, I think it was, very early 76, I was laid off. And shortly then decided that I needed to do something while I was waiting for a job. So I began cleaning windows. So
it started from humble beginnings. Now the business itself celebrates 37 years in operation this year. Now over the years the business has grown phenomenally up to a stage where you employed 55 people. Now somebody starting off with no business background or qualification, how did you manage the growth of the business?
Oh, it was very difficult. I certainly had no idea of how to develop a business or understand how money worked or how credit worked or anything. So I learned many hard lessons, and I was dependent upon the assistance of friends and families on many occasions to bail me out. But I learned after some time that it was about people, and that if I had the right people around me, that I could get things done and I could manage. And my focus has always been on the quality of people, and that's particularly so today. Any success that I have, I would attribute to the fact that I surrounded myself with good people. I'm very proud of the people that we have today. People like Paul Gaddern, who is a partner with me there now, are just rare on the ground, and to have people like that in your organisation, people who will commit themselves and their efforts to supporting you and achieving the standards that you set is a very, very rare thing to find, and hugely valuable.
You experienced your first recession during the 80s. How does that compare to the one that we're going through today?
A bit like Brendan Grace, I suppose. My life has always been a recession, growing up being reared in the 50s and through the 60s. But certainly in the 80s, the late 70s and the early 80s, the recession here was pretty dire. The big difference between then and now is that I think at that stage our expectations weren't as high, and as a nation or as a people we didn't have the debt that we probably have now, with our bigger houses and bigger cars and the other affluent signs of affluent society, namely our frequent holidays, etc. However, a shortfall of money or poverty, or whatever way you wish to phrase it, remains the same. We are all broke at different levels, I assume, and the 80s was just maybe that bit easier in retrospect, insofar as you just didn't have the money, whereas now, not having the money, but we probably still have more debt. I think that's the big difference.
So when we came out of the recession in the 80s, do you remember much about the evolution of the business going into the 90s and that?
I do indeed, I was in great difficulty trying to make ends meet and trying to establish it as a business because I had no understanding of the basic principles. I will at this stage credit a gentleman by the name of Pat Whelan, an accountant who now resides in Castlebridge. I would credit Pat as being a major influence on me at that stage. He helped me out with a lot of advice, and he became my accountant and remained so until his retirement from that business a few years back. To Pat I'll always be very grateful. He was instrumental in helping me to understand how business worked.
And what difference did that make to your own business?
Well, it meant that all of a sudden I was managing my accounts at a better level, that I began to understand proper costings and related to jobs and achieving the necessary profitability ratios. And my focus changed somewhat then from being a guy who was a cleaner to being a guy who was now responsible for a growing business that employed several people.
Was the boom good to your own particular business, and if so, in what areas?
I think the boom was good to everybody. The so-called Celtic Tiger, most businesses benefited. Some, of course, dramatically more so than others. Those who were in the development situation of whether it was housing or commercial premises for years made a lot of money. From our perspective, it just meant that we had more work available to us. The rates didn't dramatically change. We didn't get the opportunity to make a lot of money, but there was less pressure on our actual rates. Plus, people were inclined to pay their bills a little more promptly than maybe previous.
Now, I know that today, you know, in the recessionary times that we're in with the current challenges out there from an economic perspective, I'm sure that, you know, contract cleaning would come on a profit and loss account as an expense, and one of those expenses that business owners might see as one of the first ones that need to go.
That's very true. It's unfortunate, but we have noticed over the years that any time a company we were dealing with was forced into making cuts for whatever reason, unfortunately, it always seemed to be the cleaner who was called in to bear the brunt of the cuts. And too often we've seen contracts that we would have had cut from maybe 3 days a week to 2 days or 1 day, because of the client's difficulty at that time. The big problem with it, unfortunately, is that never do people go back to the original. They never increase the cleaning frequency to what it was. So therefore they end up accepting a lower cleaning standard as the norm, and the cleaners, of course, are out of pocket as a result.
So with that in mind, what have you done to adapt the business over the last number of years?
Well, we have our focus has always been on working locally and with people that we built up a relationship with. And from the original concept of cleaning windows for people, we introduced floor cleaning to them and pipework or whatever else, and carpet cleaning, and all the various other activities were add-on services to existing clients. And that's what we have done. Some years back then we started a drain cleaning operation, and whereby we will deal with anything from a block kitchen sink up to mainline sewers and foul water and surface water systems for local authorities. We have specialised equipment for surveying those drains, closed circuit TV systems, and we have no dig technology for repairs, whereby in a lot of cases we can repair underground pipes, broken drains and the like underground without the need for excavation. That's a very valuable tool to have in your armoury. It certainly brings in some revenue to us, but it's a boon to anybody with broken pipes who is looking at maybe the enormous cost of digging up their factory floor or indeed their kitchen floor, where something can be repaired without the excavation, has proven to be a very valuable to clients.
So technology has added value to your own business over the last number of years in that case?
Oh, it certainly has, and software as well was another boon to us from somebody who didn't understand business, and that probably still don't. But at least I can track it, and the various software packages there showing my accounts and indeed our HR records, etc., is very valuable and is improving all the time.
What percentage of our business is coming from the manufacturing sector?
Traditionally, manufacturing was the main focus of our business. People like Wexford Creamery and Cow and Gate and Solar Lenses, these were all people who were very busy, employing a lot of people in Wexford, manufacturing different things. So they account for probably today still close to 70% of our business. Because we offer them a huge range of services. The downside to it all at the moment, Karl, is that unfortunately in Ireland, and particularly in the Wexford area, manufacturing businesses are in a state of decline. We've witnessed some of them closing over the last few years. The last of them, they're now struggling on, but will shortly close permanently, is Solar Lenses. And it's sad to see, because there was 500 people employed up there, local people, families, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, and a great buzz about the place. And to see it declining like that and going away is very sad. And also with that, their demise, local suppliers and local services such as ourselves and painting contractors, electricians, etc., they all suffer as well. So the town has suffered badly with the loss of these well-known companies.
We're going to take a quick commercial break now, and when we come back, Joe is going to share his views on the current business environment, and he reveals the factors which have contributed to his company's success over the past 3 decades. So stay tuned.
You're listening to South East Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Think Wexford Insurances for your business insurance.
Welcome back to Business Matters. Before the break, Joe, you referred to how the decline of local manufacturing businesses has had an adverse knock-on effect for other local businesses operating within the county. With that in mind, do you feel that the government is being proactive in helping these businesses to remain in operation and ultimately to save jobs in the local area?
Well, Karl, I think that's a whole big can of worms there, something that I feel very strongly about. I laugh with irony when I hear of politicians talking about creating jobs. I've yet to see any of those jobs. I'm not saying that they're not well-meaning or anything, but politicians generally don't create jobs. Politicians seem to occupy themselves with smoke and mirror tactics to tell us things are going to be better tomorrow, that they are improving things that the previous administration of politicians have made such a mess of. I don't see them creating any worthwhile jobs other than to increase the public sector bill to the rest of us to unacceptable levels.
Do you think that they're doing enough in relation to supporting SME type businesses, let's say for instance from a credit perspective?
I would be of the firm opinion that most businesses don't want any support from government. Most businesses just want less interference from government. Anybody running a business or wanting to start a business has a vision, or they have a need or a desire to fill, and they don't necessarily need politicians or anybody else coming in to do it for them or to help them. But what they would like is to have less, maybe, legislation that is anti-work. I would go so far as to say that a lot of the legislation that we've had in Ireland here has been anti-worker, both employer and employee, to the extent that I know of businesses who are trying to get rid of people who don't want to take on extra people because of the onerous burden there is on bookkeeping, responsibilities for health and safety, and indeed now the increasing costs of redundancy.
So from the burden of employing people, you think that there's too much red tape?
Oh, there's no doubt about that, absolutely.
What needs to change?
Oh, I don't know where to start on that one. A bit of common sense, perhaps. As a country, we could employ Judge Judy for a year to look at our our legislation and simplify it. A little bit of common sense and a little bit of straight talking would be very welcome.
From a black economy perspective, your own business must be suffering.
Oh, well, the black economy, I suppose, has always been there. It certainly is a major factor in our industry. It's relatively easy for people to get into window cleaning or floor cleaning or indeed even carpet cleaning. And a lot of people do it as a sideline. They clean cars in the evening, or they'll wash your windows for a fiver or whatever else. So there is a huge amount of that. I don't know what we can do to stop that, but it certainly exists.
The future for your own business, and I suppose the future for the industry itself and the contract cleaning side, how does it look?
Bleak in so many ways. A lot of companies in the industry have diversified into other areas because of the low value that's traditionally been placed on cleaning. And as the economy tightens, people expect cleaning to be done for less and less rates. The cleaner is generally, no matter where you go, the cleaner is generally the lowest paid individual in the building. Probably followed closely, secondly, by the security guy, who is also generally lowly paid. But in most cases, the cleaner is one of the few people who is working really hard. If his work is not up to scratch, he's quickly pulled in on it. But the guy who sits and is paid 3 times his wage and sitting staring at a computer all day sometimes is not monitored half as closely. So the industry has changed and is constantly changing. A lot of the big companies have diversified, like I said. They've gone into facilities management and specialised areas. From my own perspective and in the local area, we have seen a huge drop in turnover in our business due to a number of reasons. People don't have the money anymore. The aforementioned manufacturing businesses closing has hit us badly. And there's been increased competition both in the black market and in other local start-up firms, and indeed from some of the large national and indeed international bodies knocking on the doors of clients of ours seeking business. So business has become tougher in our sector, certainly. I don't know of any companies nationwide who are making what could be termed reasonable profits. I mean, a 2 or 3% profit, a net profit at the end of the year in the cleaning industry is considered excellent. And it doesn't take a genius to work out that that's not allowing much room for investment in future development.
Joe, there's a famous line in business and it says, businesses don't grow, it's the people within them that grow. And that's certainly echoed by yourself here this morning when you say to me that, you know, the secret behind the growth of your own business from a one-man show to having 55 people on your books has been the quality of people that you've brought on board over the years. I'm interested to hear how you reward that.
Well, I need to be careful what I say here in case the taxman is listening. But seriously, I've always been interested in people, and the whole operation that we have is based on interaction with people, both our clients and, more importantly, the people who are employed by us. I will give you one example of it. Many years ago, far more years than I care to admit to, maybe, or he would care to admit, Paul Gadrin came to work for me, working part-time. He was a young guy with a mop of curly hair. Not that anybody now who would see him would believe that, but he came to work with us and he was mopping floors, and not with his hair, but he was mopping floors. He quickly became very, very sought after by the other workers. When you would ask any of the other workers, who do you want to go on a job, Paul's name kept cropping up. So we got Paul to work for us full time, and over the years Paul became so valuable. He was an incredible guy. His work ethic and his integrity I rate so highly. So Paul became a supervisor and come manager, and eventually, you know, he became a shareholder and director of the company. People like him are rare. The commitment to the cause, if you like, of the company, our principles, and his own innate integrity and honesty is just exceptional. He's a first-rate guy, and I'm very proud to have him on board, and he's in many ways far more deserving of recognition of the success of advanced cleaners than I am. Now, Karl, I've given you that example of Paul, and you asked me how I rewarded people, and I've spoken to you about Paul, but I'd like to take this opportunity, if I may, there, just to speak briefly about the other staff that I have. Over the years, we've had many people work for us, and we currently have several people who've been some decades with us. And cleaners work very hard. It's unimaginable to the general public at large some of the tasks that they have to deal with. You see the TV programmes on television showing the horrible conditions, maybe grime fighters and the like. Well, that's very much the reality, and our people, our cleaners, are going out and they're dealing with those things on a daily basis, and they're doing so for what is very small money, and we cannot reward